Hey guys, and tonight we're wandering into the deep, quiet woods. Imagine you are standing at the edge of a vast, ancient forest, the kind that swallows sound. The air is cool and smells of damp earth and pine needles, a scent that feels older than memory. Sunlight filters through the dense canopy in shifting, dusty columns, illuminating a narrow trail that disappears into the shadows. It beckons you forward, a silent invitation into a world where the maps have blank spaces and the silence is full of unseen things. This is the primal beauty of our national parks, but it's a beauty that holds secrets. For every breathtaking vista, there's a story of someone who walked in and never walked out. You feel a prickle on your skin, the instinctual awareness that you are a visitor in a place that operates by its own rules, a place that was here long before you and will be here long after. It's a feeling that tells you, in no uncertain terms, you probably wouldn't survive this if things went truly wrong. So, before you get too comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel, but only if you genuinely enjoy what we do here. Let us know in the comments where you read listening from and what time it is in your corner of the world. Now, dim your lights, maybe turn on a fan for some gentle white noise, and let's get settled in for tonight's journey. Your story begins not in the wilderness, but in the musty, comforting chaos of a small town antique shop. It's the kind of place where history lies in dusty stacks, each object whispering a fragment of its past. You're browsing aimlessly, running your fingers over worn leather-bound books and tarnished silver, when you find it tucked away on a bottom shelf. It's a field journal, bound in dark green, oilcloth canvas, its corners softened and frayed from time and use. The cover is stamped with the faint, almost invisible emblem of the Civilian Conservation Corps. You feel a small thrill of discovery. You open it, and the pages release a scent of old paper, campfire smoke, and something else. Something faintly metallic and unsettling. The handwriting inside is a neat, disciplined cursive, the ink faded to a sepia brown. It's dated 1936. The journal details the daily life of a young man named Elias Thorne, part of a CCC crew tasked with building trails and fire lookouts in the newly established Whispering Gorge National Park. You buy the journal for a handful of dollars, feeling like you've rescued a small piece of history. Back at home, under the warm glow of a lamp, you begin to read. At first, Elias's entries are exactly what you'd expect. He writes about the back-breaking work, the camaraderie with the other men, the simple meals, and the staggering, untamed beauty of the park. He describes sunsets that set the granite peaks on fire, and nights so clear, the Milky Way looked like a river of diamonds. It's a fascinating glimpse into the past, a time when much of the infrastructure we take for granted in these parks was being carved out of the wilderness by hand. The CCC was a massive public works program during the Great Depression, employing millions of young men and fundamentally shaping the American landscape. They planted billions of trees, fought forest fires, and built countless roads, bridges, and shelters that are still in use today. You read about their struggles, their small joys, and the sheer scale of their ambition. But as you turn the pages, the tone of the journal begins to shift. Elias's descriptions of the park's beauty become laced with a thread of unease. He mentions the silence of the forest, a silence he describes as heavy and watchful. He writes about the way the local Native American guides, hired for their knowledge of the terrain, would refuse to enter certain valleys after dusk, making signs to ward off something they would not name. The crews, mostly city boys, laughed it off as superstition. A particularly odd entry catches your eye, where Elias describes a strange poultice the guides used for insect bites, made from a specific type of river clay and bear grease. It's one of those wonderfully weird historical tidbits you love. People have used animal fats in medicine for millennia, but it's a far cry from the DEET in your own camping bag. Elias notes that it worked surprisingly well, but smelled, in his words, like a wet badger's last stand. It's a funny, human detail that makes him feel real close. You can almost picture him, a young man in a flannel shirt, wrinkling his nose at the strange remedy. Yet the undercurrent of anxiety in his writing is growing, and you feel a sympathetic shiver. He's no longer just writing about building a park. He's writing about surviving it. And you, sitting comfortably in your home, decide you want to see this place for yourself. You want to walk the trails he built and see the vistas he described. You want to understand what he was so afraid of. The decision, once made, takes root in your mind. This is more than a simple vacation. It feels like a pilgrimage of sorts. You spend the next week planning, using Elias's journal as your unconventional guidebook. You cross-reference his hand-drawn maps with modern satellite imagery, and to your surprise, many of the landmarks are still there, though some of the names have changed. The ridge of the sleeping giant, he described, is now officially called Mount Harrington. The Devil's Kettle Creek is now the more sanitized Crystal Creek. It's a common practice. The National Park Service was officially created in 1916 with the mission to conserve the scenery and provide for its enjoyment, and that often involved smoothing over the moor. Colorful local names for the sake of tourist-friendly branding. You feel a sense of smug satisfaction at having the original, more evocative names from Elias's time. You're not just a tourist. You're an amateur historian on a mission. Your research takes you down a rabbit hole of park history. You learn about the so-called Buffalo Soldiers, segregated African-American army regiments who were some of the first protectors of the national parks like Yosemite and Sequoia before the Park Service even existed. They built roads, fought poachers, and extinguished fires, all while facing systemic discrimination. It is a chapter of history often overlooked in the popular narrative of grizzled mountain men and Teddy Roosevelt. Then you stumble upon an even stranger fact. In the very early days of Yellowstone, before the NPS had a law enforcement division, the park was managed by the U.S. Army. Soldiers were tasked with patrolling the vast wilderness, not against a foreign enemy, but against poachers who were decimating the bison herds. You picture cavalrymen on horseback, chasing down fur trappers through geyser fields, and it sounds like the plot of a truly bizarre Western film. The journal, however, keeps pulling you back to Whispering Gorge. Elias mentions one specific trail his crew was working on, one that was never completed. According to his entries, the project was abandoned abruptly after a series of strange accidents and the disappearance of one of the foremen. The trail was meant to lead to a remote, high-altitude lake, but it's not on any modern park map. This, of course, only deepens your resolve. You find what you believe to be the starting point on your map, a faint, overgrown line branching off from a designated scenic route. It's exactly where Elias wrote it would be. You pack your gear with meticulous care, a sturdy tent, a sub-zero sleeping bag, a water filter, a first aid kit, and enough high-energy bars to feed a small army. You even joke to yourself that you've packed according to the hiker is paradox, carrying 30 pounds of gear just to feel light and free in nature. You print out the park maps, but you place Elias's journal at the very top of your pack. Its worn canvas cover, a tangible link to the past you're about to step into. The night before you leave, you read the last few entries Elias wrote before the journal goes silent. His handwriting has become hurried, almost frantic. He talks about sounds in the night, not animals, but something that sounded like rock grinding on rock, but with a purpose. He describes finding strange symbols carved into trees deep within the forest, symbols that were not from any local tribe the guides recognized. The final entry is short and chilling. They say Henderson just wandered off, slipped and fell. But I saw his tracks. They stopped, just stopped. Something is in this gorge. It doesn't want us here. I'm leaving this book at the cabin. If I don't make it back, maybe someone will understand. The entry is dated October 12th, 1936. There are no more. A quick search online for a list of CCC casualties at Whispering Gorge turns up nothing about an Elias Thorne or a Foreman Henderson. It's as if they and their story simply vanished. Historians still debate whether the romanticized vision of the CC as a wholesome, character-building enterprise fully captures the harsh realities and dangers these young men faced, often with inadequate equipment and training in truly wild places. For you, this journal is a primary source to a story history has forgotten. Driving towards the park entrance the next morning, the rising sun glinting off your windshield, you feel a mix of excitement and a low, humming dread. You are not just going for a hike. You are going to find out what happened to Elias Thorne. The entrance to Whispering Gorge National Park is deceptively serene. A massive rustic log archway welcomes you, with the iconic arrowhead logo of the National Park Service carved into the timber. It looks just like the postcards. You pull up to the ranger station, a small, tidy cabin with smoke curling gently from its stone chimney. The ranger who greets you is a woman in her late 50s, with a weathered face and eyes that seem to hold the wisdom of the mountains themselves. Her uniform is crisp, and the brim of her flat hat is so perfectly level, you suspect she uses a laser guide. You pay the entrance fee and grab a fresh park map, feigning casual interest. You ask her about the trail you're planning to start on, the official one, not mentioning your intent to venture off-piste. She smiles, a warm professional expression, but it doesn't quite reach her eyes. "Beautiful trail," she says, her voice a low, pleasant rumble. "Just be aware of the weather. It changes fast in the high country. And stick to the marked paths. This park, it's bigger on the inside than it looks on the map." Her words hang in the air for a moment too long. It's a standard warning, you tell yourself, something she probably says 100 times a day. But the way she says it, the slight pause before the end, makes it feel like a genuine caution rather than a recited script. You thank her, and as you're about to drive away, she adds, "And if you hear anything that sounds like singing on the wind, it's just the gorge playing tricks on you. The way the air moves through the rocks. It's a natural phenomenon." You nod, forcing a smile, but a cold knot tightens in your stomach. Elias had mentioned something similar in his journal, describing a faint, high-pitched hum on windy days that the other men had dismissed as the wind in the telegraph wires they were stringing. Elias, however, thought it sounded like a sad, lonely song. You drive into the park, the ranger's face receding in your rearview mirror, and the feeling of being watched begins to settle over you. The park itself is breathtaking. Towering pines and ancient cedars line the road, their colossal forms creating a cathedral of green and shadow. You pass turnouts with sweeping views of the gorge itself, a massive chasm carved into the earth over millennia, its granite walls plunging thousands of feet to a silver ribbon of a river below. You see other tourists, families posing for photos, couples holding hands, their bright Gore-Tex jackets a stark contrast to the muted, earthy tones of the wilderness. They seem oblivious to the park's immense, silent power. They are here for the scenery, but you are here for the secrets. You're reminded of the history of tourism in these parks. The Great Smoky Mountains National Park, for instance, is the most visited in the entire system, a testament to its accessibility. But that popularity belies a complex history. To create that park, thousands of residents, many of whom had lived on that land for generations, were displaced through eminent domain. Their homes, farms, and communities were erased to create a pristine wilderness for visitors. You find the trailhead easily enough. It's well marked and even has a small gravel parking lot. You pull in, shoulder your pack, and take a deep breath of the cool, clean air. For the first mile, the trail is wide and well-trodden, a gentle incline that winds through a forest of aspen and fir. You feel the tension in your shoulders begin to ease. The sun is warm, the birds are chirping, and the ranger's warning feels a little silly in the bright light of day. This is just a park. a beautiful, peaceful park. You start to think about the people who once lived here, not as tourists, but as inhabitants. Historians still debate whether the creation of national parks was a purely noble act of conservation or if it was also a form of cultural conquest, imposing a specific, often romanticized idea of nature onto lands that had been shaped and managed by indigenous peoples for centuries. It's a complicated legacy, one that's easy to forget when you're surrounded by such overwhelming beauty. About 2 miles in, you find it, exactly where Elias's map indicated. A massive lightning-scarred pine tree stands just off the trail. Behind it, almost completely hidden by overgrown rhododendron bushes, is the faint outline of a path. The unofficial trail. There are no signs, no markers. Just a barely perceptible parting in the undergrowth. This is the point of no return. You look back down the wide, safe trail you just walked, then forward into the deep, quiet shadows of the unmarked path. You could turn back now, have a lovely, normal day hike, and go home. But the journal in your pack feels heavy, a weight of unanswered questions. You take a final look around. No one is in sight. You adjust your pack, push aside the thick, waxy leaves of the rhododendrons, and step off the map. The moment you step onto the abandoned trail, the world changes. The cheerful sounds of the main path, the distant laughter of other hikers, the chirping of small birds vanish, absorbed by the dense foliage. The air grows still and heavy. The forest here is older, darker. The trees are gnarled behemoths, their branches interlocking high above to form a ceiling that blots out much of the sky. Moss hangs from the limbs in long, gray-green beards, and the forest floor is a thick carpet of pine needles and decaying leaves that muffles your footsteps. The trail itself is barely a suggestion, a faint depression in the earth that you follow more by instinct than by sight. You have to move slowly, carefully, pushing aside low-hanging branches and stepping over moss-slicked roots that snake across the path like sleeping serpents. You check your compass and Elias's hand-drawn map constantly. His sketches are surprisingly accurate. A distinctive rock outcropping, shaped like a wolf's head, appears on your right, just as he drew it. A stream you need to cross, its water shockingly cold and clear, is there too. It feels as if you're walking in his footsteps, separated only by the chasm of nearly a century. This immediate sense of connection to the past is powerful. You recall reading about how early explorers and surveyors, like Lewis and Clark, created maps that were a mixture of scientific observation and artistic interpretation. Their journals weren't just data. They were stories, filled with descriptions of flora, fauna, and encounters with native peoples. Elias's journal feels like a continuation of that tradition, a personal narrative mapped onto a physical space. After an hour of slow, steady climbing, you notice something is wrong. It's the silence. It's not the peaceful quiet of an isolated place. It's a profound, unnatural stillness. There are no squirrels chattering in the branches, no birds calling from the canopy. The only sound is your own breathing and the soft crunch of your boots on the forest floor. It's as if every living creature is holding its breath, waiting. The feeling of being watched returns, stronger this time. You stop and stand perfectly still, straining your ears, scanning the deep shadows between the trees. You see nothing but the endless, indifferent woods. You tell yourself it's your imagination, your mind primed by the journal's ominous tone. But the feeling persists, a cold weight in the pit of your stomach. You can't shake the sensation that you are intruding, that you've crossed a boundary into a place that does not welcome you. You press on, your hand instinctively resting on the canister of bear spray clipped to your hip. It's a meager comfort. You think about the bizarre array of dangers early park visitors faced. In the 1920s and 30s, it was common practice for tourists in parks like Yellowstone to feed bears right from their cars, treating them like roadside attractions. This led to hundreds of injuries annually and created generations of problem bears that had lost their natural fear of humans. It's a stark reminder of how our perception of wild has changed. The thought of offering a grizzly a sandwich from your car window seems absurd and suicidal now, a joke you might make to a friend. Yet, 100 years ago, it was a family-friendly activity. As you navigate a particularly thick section of forest, you see them. Small piles of stones stacked one on top of the other, standing in defiance of gravity. Cairns, but these are different from the simple trail markers you've seen before. They are arranged in a deliberate, repeating pattern on both sides of the trail, almost like a set of gates. Each one is topped with a single stark white piece of quartz that glitters faintly in the dim light. Elias wrote about these. He said the CCC crew would find them in the mornings near their worksite, even though no one had built them. The local guides refused to touch them, saying they were markers for something ancient and best left undisturbed. You feel a powerful urge to knock one over, to disturb the perfect, eerie symmetry of the path, but you resist. Instead, you walk carefully between them, feeling as if you are passing through an invisible doorway. The air seems to grow colder as you do. Historians still debate whether many ancient megalithic structures, like Stonehenge, were astronomical calendars, burial sites, or places of ritual. These small, mysterious cairns feel like a miniature version of that same enigma, their purpose lost to time, their meaning now just a source of unsettling speculation. You walk faster now, not looking back, wanting to put as much distance as possible between yourself and the silent stone sentinels. The trail continues its relentless upward climb, and your legs begin to burn with the effort. You're grateful for the cool air, but a damp chill is starting to seep into your clothes. The forest canopy is so thick now that the world is cast in a perpetual twilight. Every shape in the periphery seems to twist and move. A gnarled root becomes a grasping hand. A patch of pale fungus on a tree trunk becomes a leering face. Your mind is playing tricks on you, and you know it, but the knowledge does little to calm your racing heart. You pause to catch your breath, leaning against the rough bark of a giant fir tree. You pull out your water bottle and take a long drink, the cold liquid a small shock to your system. As you're screwing the cap back on, your eyes fall on the creek you've been following. It runs through a shallow ravine to your left, and spanning it is a simple, sturdy-looking footbridge made of rough-hewn logs and stone abutments. You recognize the design immediately. It's classic CCC architecture. Rustic, functional, built to blend in with the environment. This must be a part of the trail Elias and his crew were working on. You walk over to it, running your hand over the moss-covered stones. The craftsmanship is incredible. These stones were placed by hand almost a century ago, and they haven't budged an inch. It's a testament to the hard labor and skill of the young men who built it. This bridge, this solid thing beneath your feet, was their legacy. The Civilian Conservation Corps is credited with building more than 40,000 bridges and 800 parks across the United States during its 9-year run. They were a force of nature in their own right, reshaping the American landscape with little more than shovels, axes, and dynamite. Standing on this forgotten ridge, on a trail that doesn't exist on any map, you feel a profound connection to that history, to the hands that laid these very stones. You cross the bridge, and on the other side, the trail becomes even fainter. It's clear that very few people, if any, have come this way in a long, long time. And then you see it, carved into the wooden railing of the bridge. It's a symbol, the same strange, geometric symbol Elias sketched in his journal. It's a circle with 3 jagged lines cutting through it, like stylized lightning bolts or fractures in ice. The carving is old, the wood around it weathered to a silver gray, but it's unmistakably the same mark. Seeing it here, in the flesh, sends a jolt through you. This isn't just a story in a book anymore. It's real. The symbol is right in front of you. Elias had noted that these symbols appeared on trees near their camp. And the crew's tools would sometimes go missing, only to be found days later, arranged in the same pattern deep in the woods. One of the men had joked that they had a forest ghost who was really into abstract art, a weak attempt at humor to mask their growing fear. You press on, the symbol burning in your mind. The terrain grows steeper, more rugged. You are forced to use your hands to scramble up short, rocky inclines. The air is thinning as you gain altitude. You stop for a moment, looking back the way you came, but you can see nothing but a wall of trees. You are utterly, completely alone. Or at least, you hope you are. The feeling of being watched is no longer a vague prickle on your neck. It's a certainty. You can feel eyes on you from the shadows, a silent, patient observer. You find yourself thinking about a weird piece of trivia you once read, that some of the first sunscreens used by ancient Egyptians were a mixture of rice bran, jasmine, and disturbingly crocodile dung. It's a completely random thought, a piece of mental static your brain has thrown up to distract you from the creeping dread. You almost laugh at the absurdity of it, imagining an ancient Egyptian pharaoh complaining about the smell of his sunblock. The moment of levity passes quickly, however, replaced by the heavy silence of the gorge. You pull out the journal again, flipping to the page with a sketch of the symbol. Elias wrote a note beside it. The guides call it the sky shredder. They say it's a warning, a sign that you are trespassing on ground that belongs to the things that sleep beneath the mountains. It's a chillingly poetic description. Historians still debate whether many ancient petroglyphs found throughout the American West are records of historical events, maps of the stars, or expressions of shamanistic visions. This symbol feels like it belongs to that same category of unknowable history, a message from a past so deep it defies understanding. You put the journal away. You know you should turn back. Every rational instinct is screaming at you to go back to the marked trail, back to the safety of your car and the world of maps and rules. But you can't. The cabin Elias mentioned must be close now. You have to see it. You have to know how the story ends. The light is beginning to fail. The sun, which you can no longer see through the canopy, is sinking towards the horizon, and the shadows in the forest are deepening from gray to black. A cold wind begins to whisper through the treetops, carrying with it the scent of rain. You check your watch. You've been hiking for hours, much longer than you anticipated. You need to find shelter, and soon. According to Elias's map, the abandoned CCC cabin should be just ahead, nestled in a small clearing at the base of a granite cliff. You quicken your pace, your weariness forgotten, replaced by a desperate urgency. The wind picks up, and you hear it now, the sound the ranger warned you about. A low, mournful humming that seems to come from the rocks themselves. It rises and falls with the gusts of wind, a melody with no discernible pattern. It's the singing of the gorge, and it is one of the most unnerving sounds you have ever heard. You push through a final, thick grove of pine trees, their needles scratching at your face and clothes, and then you stumble out into a clearing. And there it is, the cabin. It's small and dilapidated, its log walls gray and weathered, its roof sagging in the middle. The windows are dark, empty eyes, and the stone chimney is crumbling. It looks like it could collapse at any moment. But it's a structure. It's shelter. A wave of relief washes over you. In front of the cabin is a rusted skeletal frame of what might have been a water pump and a stone fire pit filled with black sodden leaves. This was their home, the place where Elias and the other men would return after a long day of backbreaking labor. It's hard to imagine it as a place of warmth and camaraderie now. It feels desolate, haunted by the memory of what happened. Here, as you approach the cabin, you notice something odd. The ground in the clearing is strangely barren. While the surrounding forest floor is a thick carpet of needles and leaves, the earth around the cabin is bare, dark soil, as if nothing has grown here for a very long time. You see a few scattered, rusted artifacts half buried in the dirt. A dented tin cup, the head of a shovel, a coil of wire. Relics of a lost work crew. You reach the cabin's porch, which consists of 3 flat stones. The door hangs crookily on one remaining hinge. You hesitate for a moment, your hand hovering over the rotting wood. You are about to cross another threshold from the relative wildness of the forest into a place of human history, and you suspect human tragedy. You think about the great age of exploration, how men like Ferdinand Magellan set out to circumnavigate the globe, facing starvation, mutiny, and the terrifying unknown of a world they believed was filled with sea monsters. Magellan himself, of course, didn't complete the voyage. He was killed in the Philippines. It's a sobering historical fact. The leader who starts the journey often isn't the one who finishes it. The thought does little to comfort you. You take a deep breath and push the door. It groans in protest, scraping against the floorboards as it swings inward, opening into a single dark room. The air that spills out is thick with the smell of mildew, rot, and cold, dead ash. The last time a fire was lit in that fireplace was a very, very long time ago. You pull out your headlamp and switch it on, its bright beam cutting through the gloom. The inside is sparse. 2 simple wooden bunks are built into the far wall, their straw-filled mattresses long since decayed into dust. A rough-hewn table and 2 benches stand in the center of the room. And in the corner, a small Franklin-style wood stove, its metal body covered in a filigree of rust. It was in this room that Elias Thorne wrote in his journal, trying to make sense of the strange and terrifying things he was experiencing. You sweep your light across the dusty floor, and then you see it. Near the hearth, almost invisible against. The dark wood is another one of those symbols. The sky shredder scratched deeply into the floorboards. This one is fresh. The raw wood of the carving is pale against the aged, dark planks. It wasn't made in 1936. It was made recently. Your blood runs cold. You are not the first person to follow Elias's trail. Someone else has been here. The sight of the freshly carved symbol on the floor changes everything. The cabin is no longer a historical relic. It's an active scene. The hair on your arms stands on end. Who else is out here? Who else knows about this place? About Elias's? Journal? You slowly pan your headlamp around the small room again, examining every shadow, every corner. The cabin is empty. But the feeling of being watched has intensified tenfold. It feels like the observer is no longer in the woods, but in the room with you, standing just behind your shoulder, its presence a palpable, freezing pressure on the back of your neck. The first fat drops of rain begin to spatter against the sagging roof, the sound unnervingly loud in the tense silence. The storm is breaking. You have no choice but to stay here. Leaving now, in the dark, in the rain, on that treacherous trail would be suicide. You are trapped. You force yourself to move, to take action, to fight the paralysis of fear. You push the heavy, groaning door shut and wedge one of the benches under the handle. It's a flimsy barricade, more symbolic than practical, but it makes you feel marginally better. The wind howls outside, rattling the loose window frames. Rain is now lashing against the cabin in sheets. You set your pack down on the table, the sound echoing in the small space. Your mind is racing. Who could have carved that symbol? Another hiker who stumbled upon this place by chance. Unlikely, given how remote and hidden it is. A descendant of one of the CCC workers, perhaps? Or something else? The local guides Elias mentioned, did their people stay in this area? Did they continue to watch over this place, carving these symbols as a warning to anyone who intrudes? You try to distract yourself with practical tasks. You unroll your sleeping bag on one of the dusty bunks, creating a small island of modern, synthetic comfort in the sea of decay. You check your phone. No signal, of course. You knew there wouldn't be. You are completely cut off. You think about how reliant we are on that constant connection. 100 years ago, isolation like this was normal. Now, it feels like a genuine emergency. You pull out a protein bar, can eat it without tasting it. Your senses on high alert. Every creak of the old cabin, every gust of wind, sounds like a footstep, like a whisper. You're reminded of a bizarre historical fact you learned once. In 16th century England, there was a government position called the Groom of the Stool, a courtier whose job was to attend to the monarch during their most private bathroom moments. It was considered a position of great honor and influence. It's another absurd, random thought. Your brain trying to find humor and normalcy in a situation that is anything but. It doesn't work. The fear is a living thing in the room with you. Your eyes are drawn back to the hearth. Elias mentioned leaving his journal in the cabin, but you found it in an antique shop hundreds of miles away. How did it get there? Did he come back for it? Or did someone else take it? You run your hand along the cold stones of the fireplace. Your fingers brush against a loose stone in the back wall of the hearth. Curiosity overpowering your fear, you pry at it. It comes free with a puff of soot and dust. Behind it, in a small, dark cavity, is a metal box. It's an old army-issue footlocker, rusted but intact. Your heart hammers against your ribs. With trembling hands, you pull it out and set it on the floor. It's not locked. You lift the lid. Inside, resting on a bed of yellowed, brittle newspapers, is not another journal, but a collection of tin-type photographs and a small, leather-bound ledger. This isn't Elias's. This belonged to the foreman, Henderson, the man who supposedly wandered off. Historians still debate whether the official accounts of many historical events accurately reflect the experiences of the people who lived through them. Official records often smooth over the messy, inconvenient, and terrifying details of the past. You have a sinking feeling that you have just found one of those messy, terrifying details. The story of what really happened at Whispering Gorge in the fall of 1936 wasn't in the journal you bought. It's been waiting here, in this box, in this haunted cabin, for someone to find it. The storm rages outside, a symphony of wind and rain, and you open the foreman's ledger. The ledger is bound in dark, cracked leather, and the pages are filled with a different hand than Elias's, a forceful, sprawling script that speaks of authority. This is the official record of the work crew, kept by Foreman Henderson. The early entries are mundane. Supply lists, work assignments, payroll notes. You skim through them, your headlamp beam dancing across the columns of names and numbers. It's a dry, bureaucratic account of the taming of a wilderness. Henderson notes the completion of the stone bridge, praising the crew's efficiency. He complains about a delayed shipment of dynamite from a supplier back east. It's the unglamorous, logistical side of history that often gets forgotten. Building a park wasn't just about romantic notions of nature. It was about managing payroll and tracking inventory, a fact that would make a pretty boring Ken Burns documentary. Then, the entries begin to change. Henderson starts making notes in the margins, his neat script growing agitated. He mentions the crew's nervousness, their talk of spooks in the woods. He dismisses it as boyish fancy and threatens to dock the pay of any man caught spreading rumors. But a week later, his tone shifts. He writes, "Tools missing again. Found them. A half-mile downstream, laid out in that damnable pattern. Miller swears he saw a man watching them from the trees, tall and thin. But when they went to look, there was nothing. No tracks. You can feel the foreman's rigid authority beginning to crack, his frustration warring with a growing unease. He refuses to acknowledge. You pick up the tin-type photographs. They are eerie, formal portraits of the young men of the crew, their faces serious and unsmiling as they pose in their work clothes. Their youth is striking. Most of them look like teenagers, boys playing at being men in the vast, unforgiving wilderness. You see Elias, his face instantly recognizable from the faint author photo you imagined. He looks earnest and worried. And you see Henderson, a broad, stern-looking man in his 40s, with a thick mustache and a gaze that dares you to challenge him. In one photo, the entire crew is posing on the newly completed bridge. They are trying to look proud, but there's a haunted quality to their eyes, a tension in their postures. They are not at ease in this place. The photograph itself is a small piece of history. Tintypes were an early form of photography that created a direct positive image on a thin sheet of metal. They were durable, which is why these have survived. But they required subjects to stay still for several seconds, which explains the stiff, formal poses. As you continue to read the ledger, Henderson's entries become a catalog of escalating strangeness. He records a rock slide that narrowly missed the camp, a sudden illness that swept through the men, leaving them weak and delirious for days, and the constant, unnerving feeling of being stalked. He writes about the singing in the gorge, describing it not as a natural phenomenon, but as a lure. He claims it gets louder, more compelling, on nights with a full moon. He admits to seeing the strange, tall figure himself, a fleeting glimpse of something unnaturally gaunt moving through the trees at dusk. His scientific, rational worldview is crumbling. He is a man in charge, responsible for the safety of his crew, and he is facing something that is not in any engineering manual. The final entry in the ledger is dated October 11th, 1936, the day before Elias's last entry in his own journal. It is almost illegible, the pen strokes dug so deep they tore the page. It took Peterson last night. I heard the singing. He just walked out of the bunkhouse and into the woods. We called for him. We found his hat by the creek. The men are panicked. They want to leave. I can't let them. The project must be finished. I have to know what is making that sound. I'm going after it. I'm taking the rifle. The rest of the crew can wait for my return. He never returned. The official story was that he slipped and fell, a common enough accident in this terrain. But this ledger tells a different story. He didn't fall. He went hunting for a ghost. Historians still debate whether the frontier mentality of the 19th and early 20th centuries, a belief in conquering and taming the wild, was a source of American strength or a hubris that led to countless unrecorded tragedies. Foreman Henderson, it seems, was a victim of that hubris. He believed his rifle and his resolve could defeat a song. And you, sitting in the dark, listening to that very same song on the wind outside, know he was wrong. The revelation in Henderson's ledger settles upon you like a physical weight. The official history is a lie, a comfortable story told to cover up an uncomfortable, inexplicable truth. Henderson didn't just wander off. He was lured away, just like the man named Peterson. And what about Elias? His journal ends the very next day. Did he flee in terror? Or did he meet the same fate? The cabin, which had felt like a shelter, now feels like a tomb. The air is thick with the ghosts of these lost men. The storm outside seems to be getting worse, the wind shrieking around the corners of the cabin like a living thing. A sudden, violent gust slams against the door, making the bench you wedge there jump. Your heart leaps into your throat. It was just the wind. You tell yourself it was just the wind. You carefully place the ledger and the photographs back in the metal box and slide it back into its hiding place behind the loose stone, replacing the stone to conceal it once more. This story doesn't belong to you. It belongs to this place. Sharing it feels like a betrayal, like disturbing a grave. You need to focus on your own survival now. You have to make it through the night. You zip yourself into your sleeping bag, pulling it up to your chin. The modern, high-tech fabric feels ridiculously inadequate against the ancient dread that permeates the cabin. You switch off your headlamp, plunging the room into absolute darkness. Your other senses immediately heighten. You can hear every drip of water finding its way through the roof, every scuttling sound in the walls rats or something else, and the incessant, terrifying howl of the wind. Lying there in the oppressive dark, your mind refuses to rest. It replays the words from the journals, the images from the tintypes. You picture Elias, young and afraid, scratching out his final words. You picture Henderson, proud and stubborn, marching into the woods with his rifle, walking towards the source of that impossible song. What did he find? What did it do to him? The darkness seems to press in on you, taking on shapes and forms. You feel a profound and primal fear, the kind our distant ancestors must have felt huddled around a fire, listening to the sounds of unseen predators circling in the night. It's a fear that reminds you that we are not, and have never been, the masters of this world. We are just temporary guests, small and fragile in the face of the vast. Ancient wilderness. You find yourself thinking about the park's name? Whispering Gorge. It sounds so gentle, so poetic. But what if the whispers aren't just the wind? What if they are voices? What if the gorge itself is whispering, luring people in, telling them things they want to hear, promising them something? It's a fanciful, terrifying thought. But out, here, alone, in the dark, it feels plausible. You remember reading about the Dyatlov Pass incident, the real-life mystery of 9 Russian hikers who died under bizarre circumstances in the Ural Mountains in 1959. Their tent was cut open from the inside, and they fled into the sub-zero temperatures without proper clothing. The cause of their deaths remains a subject of intense speculation, from avalanches to secret military tests to something far stranger. Historians still debate whether a mundane explanation can account for all the bizarre evidence, or if the case represents a genuine, unsolved paranormal event. Right now, a paranormal explanation for what happened here in Whispering Gorge feels more likely than any official story. Suddenly, a new sound cuts through the storm. A soft, rhythmic scratching. It's coming from the door. Scratch, pause, scratch, pause. It's not the wind. It's deliberate. Your breath catches in your chest, and every muscle in your body tenses. Something is outside. It knows you're in here. You lie perfectly still, barely daring to breathe, praying it will go away. The scratching stops. An agonizingly long silence follows, filled only by the roar of the wind and the frantic pounding of your own heart. Then, a new sound. A voice. It's a low, raspy whisper, right outside the door, and it says your name. Hearing your name spoken by that dry, scraping voice in the middle of a storm, in a cabin miles from any living soul, is a violation of the laws of reality. It's impossible. No one knows you're here. You didn't tell anyone your exact route. It can't be real. It must be a hallucination. Your sleep-deprived, terrified mind manufacturing sounds out of the chaotic noise of the storm. Auditory pareidolia, the brain's tendency to find patterns in random noise. That's the rational explanation. You cling to it like a life raft, but the voice was so clear, so close. It felt more real than the rotting wood of the bunk beneath. You squeeze your eyes shut, your hands clenched into fists inside your sleeping bag, and you listen. You listen harder than you've ever listened to anything in your life. The storm continues its assault on the cabin, but the voice does not come again. The scratching does not resume. Was it just the wind? A branch scraping against the door? It must have been. It had to be. But the fear it ignited doesn't subside. It has settled deep in your bones, a cold, hard certainty that you are in terrible danger. Sleep is now an impossibility. You are on watch, a lone sentinel guarding a fortress of rotting logs against an enemy you cannot see or comprehend. You think about the lives of actual park rangers, especially in the early days. The popular image is one of a lone, heroic figure communing with nature. The reality was often one of profound isolation, low pay, and immense danger from fighting fires and dealing with poachers to performing search and rescue in brutal conditions. Historians still debate whether this romanticized portrayal did a disservice to the men and women who performed the difficult, often unglamorous work of managing these vast territories. Their solitude was a job requirement. Yours is a waking. Nightmare.hours pass. You lie in the darkness, a prisoner in your own mind, replaying every strange event, every ominous passage from the journals. The silent forest, the stone cairns, the carved symbols. Henderson's descent into fear, Elias's vanishing act, the song on the wind, the fresh carving on the floor, and the voice. It all pieces together into a narrative that defies logic. You are no longer just a history enthusiast who stumbled upon an old story. You are now part of that story. You are the latest character in the haunted history of Whispering Gorge. You wonder about the person who carved the fresh symbol. Were they a victim or a perpetrator? A fellow seeker of truth, or a guardian of the gorge's terrible secret? Perhaps they were the one who scratched at your door. Perhaps they were trying to warn you. Or perhaps they were trying to get in dot, as if in response to your thoughts. A new sound begins. It's faint at first, barely audible over the wind, but it's growing. It's the humming, the singing. It's no longer just a feature of the wind. It's a clear, high, piercingly sweet melody. It's beautiful and hypnotic, and it seems to vibrate right inside your skull. This is what lured Peterson and Henderson to their doom. You understand now how it could happen. The sound is mesmerizing. It seems to promise something wonderful, something you've been searching for your entire life. It calls to a deep, forgotten part of your soul. A small, insane part of you wants to open the door, to walk out into the storm, and find the source of that beautiful, terrible music. You have to fight it. You clamp your hands over your ears, but it doesn't help. The music isn't coming from outside. It's inside your head. You start humming a tune. Any tune, a stupid pop song from the radio, anything to create a competing noise in your mind, to drown out the siren call of the gorge. It's a battle of wills, you against the mountain. You remember reading a strange bit of trivia about the dancing plague of 1518 in Strasbourg, where hundreds of people began to dance uncontrollably in the streets for days on end, many of them dying from exhaustion or heart attacks. No one knows for sure what caused it. Theories range from mass hysteria to ergot poisoning, but the image of people being compelled to dance themselves to death is profoundly disturbing. This feels like a similar phenomenon, an auditory plague, a sound that compels you towards your own destruction. You focus on the lyrics of the stupid pop song, repeating them over and over like a mantra. The melody of the gorge tries to weave itself around your thoughts, to pull you under. You fight it with all your strength, the minutes stretching into an eternity, until, finally, you feel the first hints of dawn. The darkness in the cabin begins to soften from absolute black to a deep, bruised purple. And as the light grows, the singing begins to fade. The dawn arrives not with a glorious sunrise, but with a slow, grudging retreat of the darkness. The storm has broken, but the sky is a uniform leaden gray. A thick, wet mist clings to the clearing, shrouding the trees in a spectral haze and muffling all sound. The world outside the cabin is silent, save for the steady drip, drip, drip of water from the eaves. The oppressive, supernatural dread of the night has receded with the darkness, replaced by a cold, gritty exhaustion and a single, overwhelming imperative. Get out. You have to get out of here. Now. You scramble out of your sleeping bag, your movements stiff and clumsy. You don't bother with breakfast. The thought of food is nauseating. You stuff your gear into your pack with frantic, trembling hands. Your only goal to be ready to move the second there is enough light to see the trail. You feel a desperate, animalistic need to put this place behind you, to return to the world of marked trails, paved roads, and cell phone service. The experience has stripped away your romantic notions of historical exploration. You didn't uncover a charming, forgotten piece of the past. You stumbled into a communal grave and barely survived the night with its ghosts dot as you're about to leave. Your eyes fall on the hearth again. You think of Elias's journal. He wrote, "I'm leaving this book at the cabin." But you found it in an antique shop. Someone must have taken it from here. Someone survived. Did Elias make it out? Did he come back for it years later? An old man confronting the trauma of his youth? Or did another member of the crew, one of the terrified boys who fled after Henderson disappeared, take it as a memento of his lost friend? You'll never know. The journal's journey from this haunted place to that dusty antique shop is a mystery in itself, a loose thread in a story full of them. This gap in the historical record is frustrating, but also common. Historians still debate whether Joan of Arc's visions were genuine divine communication, a symptom of a neurological condition, or a shrewd political performance. The truth is often lost because the only person who truly knew the answer didn't, or couldn't, leave a record. The same is true for Elias's journal. Its provenance is a ghost. You shoulder your pack and remove the bench from the door. You pull the creaking door open and step out into the damp, gray morning. The air is cold and heavy with the smell of wet earth and decaying leaves. The mist is so thick you can barely see the tree line at the edge of the clearing. It's like the world has been erased, leaving only this small, isolated stage. You look at the ground and your stomach plummets. There are footprints in the soft, muddy earth around the cabin. A single set of tracks. They are not yours. They are from large, heavy boots, much bigger than your hiking boots. And they are fresh. They lead from the tree line, circle the cabin. Once, stop directly in front of the door where the scratching occurred, and then lead back into the woods, disappearing into the mist. Someone was out here last night, watching you. The voice you heard was real. A wave of pure adrenaline surges through you, momentarily erasing your exhaustion. You are being hunted. You look at the direction. The tracks are headed back down the trail, back the way you need to go. Is the owner of the boots waiting for you? Is it a trap? You have no other choice. It's the only way out, you know. You pull your map and compass out, your hands shaking so badly it's hard to hold them steady. You take a bearing, commit the direction to memory, and start moving. You don't run. Running is loud and reckless. It leads to falls and injuries. You move with a deliberate, focused speed, your senses on a razor's edge. Every snapped twig, every rustle of leaves sends a jolt of panic through you. The forest is no longer a place of silent observation. It's a place of active, imminent threat. You think about how early humans survived in a world like this, a world full of predators far more real than ghosts or singing mountains. Our ancestors' brains evolved to be hypervigilant, to see threats in every shadow. It's a survival mechanism that modern life has dulled, but out here, it has come roaring back to life. You are no longer a hiker. You are prey. You move through the misty forest like a ghost, your feet making as little sound as possible on the sodden ground. The world is a monochromatic palette of gray and dark green. The mist deadens sound, creating an eerie, claustrophobic silence. You can't see more than 20 feet in any direction, which is both a blessing and a curse. You can't see what's following you, but it also can't see you. You hope. The boot prints are still there on the trail. A constant, terrifying reminder that you are not alone. They follow the path with an unerring confidence, the stride long and even. Whoever this is, they know this forest. They belong here in a way you never will. You try to profile the person you're following. A park ranger? No, they would have identified themselves. A hermit or a squatter? Possibly. People do disappear into the wilderness, living off the grid for years. There are famous cases of individuals who have lived undetected in national parks for decades, but the symbol, the voice, it doesn't feel like a simple recluse. It feels older, more purposeful. You keep glancing over your shoulder, your heart pounding a frantic rhythm against your ribs. The mist swirls and shifts, creating fleeting shapes that look like a tall, thin man watching from behind a tree. You blink, and the shape is gone. Your imagination is running wild, fueled by fear and lack of sleep. As you descend, you pass the strange, silent cairns again. In the mist, they look like small, hunched figures lining the path, an honor guard of stone. You hurry past them, not wanting to linger. You cross the old CCC bridge, its logs dark and slick with rain. You don't even pause to look at the carved symbol on the railing. You just want to get back to the main trail, back to civilization. You think about the sheer scale of the national park system, over 85 million acres. It's an area larger than many countries. Within that vastness, it's easy to get lost. It's even easier to disappear. The number of people who go missing in national parks each year is a sobering statistic. While most are found, a significant number are not. They simply vanish, their stories becoming part of the park's grim, unofficial folklore. You are fighting with every fiber of your being not to become one of those stories. The boot prints continue to mock you, a steady, ominous presence on the path ahead. And then you notice something new. Lying in the middle of the trail is a single black feather. It's a large raven feather, its edges ragged. It wasn't there on your way up. It feels like a sign, a marker. In many cultures, ravens are seen as omens, as messengers between worlds. You stare at it for a long moment before stepping around it, a new layer of superstitious dread settling over you. A few hundred yards further down the trail, you find another one, and then another. They are being left for you to find. It's a game of cat and mouse, and you have no idea what the rules are. You're reminded of a strange historical tidbit. The London Necropolis Railway, which ran from 1854 to 1941. It was a dedicated railway line whose sole purpose was to transport coffins and mourners from London to the massive Brookwood Cemetery. They even had first, second, and third-class tickets for the deceased, ensuring the British class system extended even beyond the grave. The thought of a ghost train for class-conscious corpses is so profoundly weird, it almost makes you laugh. But the sound dies in your throat. It feels wrong to make a sound in this silent, waiting forest. The feathers continue to appear, leading you onward, pulling you along a string of dark omens. The person leading them isn't behind you anymore. They are ahead of you, marking the way, controlling your path. The realization is terrifying. You are not escaping. You are being herded. The game of feathers continues for what feels like an eternity. Every 50 paces, another black feather lies starkly against the muddy trail. It's a psychological torment. You know you're being led, but you have no other path to follow. To step off the trail into the dense, misty undergrowth would be to get hopelessly lost. Your pursuer or guide or tormentor, whatever they are, knows this. They have you trapped on this narrow ribbon of earth, and they are toying with you. The adrenaline that fueled you earlier is gone, replaced by a deep bone-grinding fatigue. Your body is running on empty, but the fear keeps you moving. one foot in front of the other, you start to think about the nature of fear itself, how it has shaped human history. Fear of the unknown drove exploration. Fear of damnation built cathedrals. Fear of enemies fueled empires and technological innovation. It is perhaps the most powerful motivator of all. Right now, it is the only thing keeping you from collapsing on the trail and giving up. You recall the historical phenomenon of the Great Fear during the French Revolution, a period of widespread panic and riot by peasants who, fueled by rumors of an aristocratic conspiracy, armed themselves and attacked manor houses. It was a collective hysteria, a social contagion of terror. What you're feeling now is a solitary, distilled version of that same primal panic. The trail is beginning to look more familiar. You recognize the wolf head-shaped rock outcropping, its features softened and distorted by the mist. You are getting close to the main trail. The thought gives you a surge of hope, the first you felt in what seems like days. Maybe this is the end of the game. Maybe your tormentor is just trying to scare you away to ensure you never come back. Maybe they will let you leave. As if in answer, you see the final feather. This one is different. It's not lying on the ground. It is stuck upright in the earth, and tied to its shaft with a thin piece of sinew is a small, carved object. A tiny wooden bird. Your blood freezes. It's one of the objects Elias described in his journal. He wrote that the crew would find them on their pillows in the morning. Small, impossibly detailed carvings of animals left by an unseen hand. It was one of the first signs that they were not alone. You stare at the tiny, perfect bird. It's peace offering or a final warning. You don't know which. You don't touch it. You back away slowly, then turn and push yourself into a clumsy, stumbling run. You don't care about the noise anymore. You just want out. You crash through the last 100 yards of the overgrown trail, rhododendron leaves slapping at your face, and then you burst out onto the main path. It's wide and clear and blessedly, beautifully normal. You have never been so happy to see a well-maintained trail in your life. You stand there for a moment, gasping for breath, your lungs burning, and you look back. The entrance to the abandoned trail is almost invisible, just a dark shadow in a wall of green. It's as if the path, the cabin, and the entire night of terror never existed. You start walking, almost jogging, down the main trail, away from that dark opening. The mist is beginning to thin, and you can see patches of gray sky overhead. You hear a sound, a bird, a real bird, chirping a simple, cheerful song. It's the most beautiful sound you have ever heard. You almost cry with relief. The forest is coming back to life. The unnatural silence has been broken. You are leaving that other place, that silent, waiting world behind you. Or so you hope. Historians still debate whether great historical changes are driven by the actions of powerful individuals or by vast, impersonal forces like economics and geography. As you hurry down the path, you feel like you've just been caught between both. The personal, malevolent intelligence that stalked you, and the vast, impersonal power of the gorge itself. You don't know which is more terrifying. You just know you are lucky to be escaping. You don't look back again. The rest of the hike is a blur. Your body is on autopilot. Your mind a maelstrom of shock and relief. Every step that takes you further from the abandoned trail and closer to the parking lot feels like a victory. The world is slowly returning to normal. You pass another hiker coming up the trail, a man in a bright yellow rain jacket with a cheerful smile. Morning, he says, as if it's the most ordinary day in the world. You manage a weak nod and a mumbled hello in return. The simple human interaction is so jarring, so alien after the profound isolation and terror you've experienced, that it almost feels unreal. He has no idea what lies just a few miles up that mountain. hidden behind a curtain of leaves. He has no idea how close he is to a place where the rules of the world don't apply. You reach the parking lot. Your car is there, exactly as you left it, a beautiful, mundane metal box promising safety and escape. You have never felt such affection for an inanimate object. You fumble for your keys, your hands still shaking, and unlock the doors. The sound of the electronic chirp is the sound of the 21st century, the sound of a world of order and technology. You throw your pack in the back and slide into the driver's seat, locking the doors immediately. You just sit there for a moment, your head resting against the steering wheel, your body trembling with the aftershocks of fear. You survived. You actually survived. You start the car, the engine roaring to life with a reassuring rumble. You put it in reverse and are about to back out when you glance in your rearview mirror. Standing at the edge of the tree line, right beside the trailhead sign, is a man. He is tall and thin, dressed in the old-fashioned dark green uniform of a 1930s park ranger. His face is gaunt and shadowed by the brim of his hat, but you can see that he is deathly pale. He is just standing there, perfectly still, watching. You. It's the figure from Henderson's journal, the man Miller saw in the woods, and in his hand he is holding a single black feather. He slowly raises it in a gesture that is not a wave, but a silent acknowledgement, a dismissal. Then he turns and melts back into the shadows of the forest, vanishing as if he were never there. You don't wait to process what you've seen. You slam the car into drive and peel out of the parking lot, gravel spitting from your tires. You drive. Too fast, your hands gripping the steering wheel, so tightly your knuckles are white. You don't slow down until you reach the main park road. You are surrounded by other cars now, by RVs and minivans filled with families. You are back in the real world. But the image of the Pale Ranger is burned into your mind. Who was he? The ghost of Henderson? The foreman, now a spectral guardian of the gorge, forever bound to the place that took him? Or was he something else entirely? The entity Elias wrote about, wearing a familiar form? You're reminded of the stories of the Green Man in European folklore, a spirit of the woods, a symbol of nature's untamable power. Maybe every wild place has its guardian. Maybe you met the guardian of Whispering Gorge. You don't stop until you reach the park exit. You pass the ranger station, but you don't look at it. You don't want to see the face of the ranger who warned. You don't want to see if she knows what you've been through, what you've seen. You just want to be gone. As you drive under the massive log archway, leaving the park behind, you feel a sense of release, as if a physical pressure has been lifted from you. You have escaped, but you know that a part of you will always be back there, in that dark, silent forest, in that haunted cabin. You brought the journal's story to a close, but in doing so, you have become a part of it. The history of Whispering Gorge is now your history too, and you know, with a chilling certainty, that you will have nightmares about the singing on the wind for a very, very long time. The miles dissolve behind you as you drive away from Whispering Gorge, each one a small victory. The granite peaks of the park recede in your rearview mirror until they are just a jagged line on the horizon. And then they are gone. You are back. In a world of billboards and gas stations, of power lines and neatly paved roads. It's a loud, messy, beautifully safe world. You stop at the first brightly lit 24-hour diner you see. You walk in, the bell above the door chiming your arrival, and slide into a vinyl booth. A waitress comes over, her face tired but kind, and asks what you'll have. You order coffee, and when she brings it, the simple warmth of the ceramic mug in your hands feels like the most profound comfort you have ever known. You sit there for a long time, drinking coffee, watching the headlights of passing trucks slice through the darkness. You are a strange sight, muddy, disheveled, with a haunted look in your eyes. But no one seems to notice, or if they do, they are polite enough not to stare. In the anonymous sanctuary of the roadside diner, you are just another weary traveler. You think about Elias's journal, which is still in your pack. You could throw it away, burn it, erase it from your life. But you know you won't. It's a piece of evidence. A testament to the lives of the men who were lost in that gorge. It's a story that deserved to be known, even if only by you. The history of the common person is so often lost, overshadowed by the grand narratives of kings and presidents. This journal is a small, vital piece of that other history. The history of ordinary people caught in extraordinary, terrifying circumstances. You finally pay your bill and get back in your car. The drive home is long and quiet. You don't turn on the radio. You prefer the silence, a silence you can control, a silence that isn't heavy and watchful. When you finally arrive home, you walk through your front door and are hit by the familiar smells and sights of your own life. It's a place of safety and order, a world away from the deep, primal chaos of the gorge. You take the longest, hottest shower of your life, washing away the dirt and the grime, and you hope some of the fear. You put on clean clothes and make yourself a cup of tea. You sit in your favorite chair, and for the first time, in what feels like a lifetime, you begin to relax. The terror is fading, becoming a memory. A sharp, vivid memory that will never entirely leave you, but a memory nonetheless. It's a story you will carry with you, a secret knowledge about the world. You know now that the maps are not complete, that there are still places where the silence sings and the shadows watch. And you know how lucky you are to have returned from one of them. You've had your brush with the sublime, terrifying power of the true wilderness. You've learned that some history is best left buried, and you have never been more grateful for the simple, boring safety of four walls and a roof dot, and so your adventure into the whispering, shadowed past comes to a gentle close. The memory of the chilling wind and the impossibly ancient song begins to soften now, its sharp edges blurring as you settle deeper into the warmth and safety of your own space. The image of the tall, pale figure at the edge of the woods fades, dissolving back into the forest of your mind, a story that has been told and can now be put to rest. The adrenaline recedes, replaced by a profound and heavy sense of weariness, the kind that promises a deep and dreamless sleep. Let the steady rhythm of your own breathing be your anchor, a quiet, reassuring beat in the stillness of the room. Feel the weight of your body as you relax completely, letting go of the journey, letting go of the fear, drifting now on a soft and quiet current towards the shores of slumber. The story is over. You are safe. You are home. And it is time now to simply rest.